Okay, ads are done. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to patch 7.5 rundown. I do one of these on every single patch, so if this is your first time here, welcome. Stick around for a while. It's probably going to take about 30 minutes to 45 minutes, give or take. I don't know how long the update is, but around then. Point of this rundown is to kind of break down what I think about the patches, what I think could be better, worse, and just how I feel about them. Additionally, at the very end, I'll also go over the new champion update because there's a new champion update. It's pretty sick. Um, Anyways, let's run it off. So, what was their point for this patch? They're trying diving into long-term problems that have been around for a while. Uh, we're continuing to work on AD carries. There are steps to address how much damage Varus, Jhin, and MF are dealing. A few champions have been tearing pro play despite the changes have been seen too long. We're diving into strengths of those and looking at some larger projects. Okay, so this is going to fix some long-term stuff as well as address some AD carries. Cool. Let's keep going. So Aatrox, health cost reduced. Oh, okay, so this is the new Aatrox. So essentially, this is a surprise to me. So, well, I guess maybe not a surprise. So people who haven't heard before, my idea of balance is that there should be. I think that there should be no champion that's super super bad. Like for instance, Aatrox is a good example, and old Vlad before reworks of really really bad champions that are barely playable in any situation. I think that rather than there be like a kind of an S tier, when you look at a tier list like S A B C D E F, there should only be like an S to like a C, and like that should be the C should be the worst. That we can go. So any champion that's below a C in terms of viability can be buffed up here and there, whether through base stats or some base damage, some scaling here and there, just so that they're more usable situations. I don't really think that there's a problem with that. Generally, it will increase overall champion viability, and yeah, I don't think there's a big problem with that. That's how I think the champions should be balanced. However, in the past, what Riot's done is when there's situations where a champion is too oppressive or is really really hard to balance, they'll leave a champion very very weak. Good examples are like old Vladimir, old Yorick, current Aatrox before this pseudo rework, where they don't touch it until they rework it because it's a balanced impossibility, and it's better that the champion is not playable than actually good because it's too problematic when it's good. And so that was the problem with Aatrox before, was that when he is good, he's a monster, like lifesteal tanking badass that has a free revive on his passive, and when he sucks, he's just unplayable. And similar problems have been shown for other champions like Vladimir and Yorick, stuff like that. Old Olaf as well, if people remember that old. And Azir to some extent, but they buffed him up recently, so I don't really think he's a good example of that. Anyways, so what did they decide to do for Aatrox? They reduced his health costs, and then this is kind of new for them because I feel like this is a champion that's going to get reworked in some way, shape, or form. For sure, Aatrox will get reworked in the future because I think they haven't done a good job with him. He's supposed to be like a ridiculous general that commands armies. He's supposed to be like a general on the battlefield. And when I play Aatrox and I see Aatrox, I don't really get that feeling. I think that he's a champion that's definitely clocked for rework sometime in the future. And usually when champions are like that, they just kind of get stuck there. So this is different than what they've done in the past. I don't mind them doing this though. I think it's actually pretty good for them to buff champions like rather than leaving them really really weak, really weak. So let's go see what happens. His abilities cost health, and since his healing skills with damage, building taking not only hurts his kill potential but also makes him much harder to kill. With Aatrox to do more in games he's not running away with. That means making it more rewarding for him to invest gold in durability as well as making it less punishing for him to use his other abilities. Cool. So what is he gonna do? But well, what is it? The revive cooldown got lowered. Okay, this is a problematic ulti. All revive passives are pretty problematic, but let's see the rest of the kit because that's what really matters. So Q loses his 10% current health cost, which is, I think that's pretty good. I think having him cost health for stuff is fine, but it's also really hard balance. Like it's hard to balance that in mind because then you have to have healing to offset the health loss. A good example is Vladimir, a champion who's really good at being able to balance like the level of healing he gets back through Q and ulti and W to some extent as well as the damage that he puts out with his E. But it's definitely a difficult champion to balance. And if the history of Vladimir and has showed you anything, then I find keeping it having no health cost. Honestly, as long as it's probably easier to balance in that regard. So what happened here? They gave it a 1.1 total AD ratio, so he scales better with levels as well as with items, and probably scales much better with more AD that he gets. And now fills 20% of the blood well when cast. Okay, I think that's really cool. What does the blood well do for him again? When it reaches 100%, it'll give him blood rush for duration. He gains base attack damage and attack speed when he hits cap. Okay, that's actually really. So the idea is that, does his passive fade? If not, then it gives you openings to do all-ins. And as the opponent playing against Aatrox, you want to be looking at his blood well a lot for when he can do the most amount of damage, because having insane attack speed and insane base damage is pretty good. Alright, let's keep going. But it's 20% here, 20% here, 20% here, meaning that he needs to use 5 abilities to get his blood well up. And when he does get his blood well off, meaning at level 1, you're probably going to see people literally like spamming his abilities to prep like a level 1 blood well to try to cheese the other player. Oh, it drains over the duration. So it's like Narbar. Probably doesn't drain that badly, but I guess it's not spammable at level 1 to fill this up. So I guess it's similar to like Rumble and Nar, and that goes down. Okay, so what happens here? The scaling is based off of plus percentage missing health. Wow, it scales super well with building tanky, because and it scales well. The champ is always scaled well with attack speed. So with attack speed and building tanky, 5% missing health could potentially be a lot. Like, it definitely rewards you for building tanky and not having to be like so glass as before. Additionally, the Q now scales with bonus damage, but it got reduced. So it encourages people to build tanky. This is just turned into a bruiser rather than like a full glass cannon. Because it used to be 200 and 1.0 AD. Now it's 150 plus 0.7. The base heal is much higher on the heal as well, going upwards of 90, but I guess it's because it's scaled off bonus AD. This is kind of weird. So I guess both the parts of the W are very well defined. Like, one scales off of your missing HP, and the other scales off of your AD, which I think is okay. What's the other thing? E costs 30 health, but it's probably going to be less than 5% current health, except for at very low values. I'm surprised they kept a health value on this in the first place. Because, how almost nothing else costs health in this entire kit. It now has no AP ratio, meaning you can't run AP Aatrox anymore. It's okay. And now it does higher base at the end, slightly higher bonus AD, and slow goes from 30 to 50%. So slightly better slow. But duration got reduced by a lot. I think he used to max his ability because it was your wave clear as well as your harass. And now they nerfed the duration. That's pretty suspect. I think the champion is interesting at the very least. The thing is, I can't really talk too much about Aatrox because, one, I haven't seen the champion much recently. Two, I haven't played as a champion before. So like, this is a champion that like very few people played, just period. Off the top of my head, even when he was like kind of okay, like, I only remember Voyboy, Quas really playing this champion. Everyone else kind of disliked playing this champion for the most part. And so I don't really have much to add on top of this. I have to see more of it in action. Overall, it seems like it's okay because it encourages you to build tanky. I don't think that's a bad thing. But I have to see what happens when it mixes it up. Moving onwards, Fizz. The Q AP ratio up, W bleed duration down, mark duration up. R pickup radius. Oh god, really? Oh, that's so funny. Okay, so the AP ratio buffing by 0.2 on Q is actually huge. Really surprising that they decided to do that. I don't think the champion's in that bad state right now, and I think that giving him a free 0.2 ratio is super nice. The biggest thing is this. This is, I feel like they give you this, but this is the real nerf. So for anyone who's played against Fizz, alright. His ulti has a latch range at the very end that's just complete BS. Like, I played against this champion, I play as this champion. Sometimes you'll be within like 100 or 200 feet of the ending location of on like the edge of the location, and it just like latches to you and you're dead. The champion itself doesn't lane too well, but he has like specific matchups where he's okay into, and I think that that's all right. I don't mind. I think the mark duration increasing as well is really cool. The bleed damage decreasing is probably better for you because it means that every second that you refresh your passive, you technically do more damage. And so I think that this is the most aggravating part about playing against Fizz, is that they can't pick up the fish anymore when they step over it, as well as the fact that it checks a lot less at the end. And I think that if you get hit with a fish after this nerf, I'm assuming the nerf is pretty big, then that's your own fault. And that's fine. If I get hit with a fish, I'm just going to be like, alright, well, he outplayed me. And they gave him a couple buffs. I don't think Fizz is in a super good spot right now, except for as a specific counterpick to stuff like Xerath, stuff like Victor, stuff like Syndra. And I think that it's okay to have champions be specific counterpicks for situations like that. He is pretty good if you can snowball him, and he snowballs like a monster, like most assassins. So I think that this will help him a little bit. I don't mind. I think they buffed him in a certain way, and then nerfed the most aggravating part about playing against him. Kindred. Okay, so let me give you my thoughts on this champion first. I used to talk with Medius about this champion. I've talked with him in the past before, and the idea of Kindred itself is very... The idea, for the most part, is Kindred's entire power comes from his marks. How many marks you can get in a game that determines your relative worth as a champion. The problem is, either Kindred is strong enough to contest the scuttle marks and the marks in enemy jungle, or she's not, meaning that she is forced to have to skirmish well early. And if she can't skirmish, then she's not a great champion. So whenever you see Kindred's really, really strong, like on release Kindred to like, she got nerfed 3 times, she was still pretty good, and then she got nerfed like another couple times, and she's not very good. But the reason why she was good before is because she has such good skirmishing that she could almost always win all the jungle fights. And she gains priority on all the first couple of marks, and that snowballs. You get a mark, you do more damage, it's easier for you to get the next mark. But that's not true in today's day and age. And so I'm curious what they're going to do about this. What does it say? Passive jungle mark rules updated to be more favorable for Kindred. Volatility, we made other changes to smooth Kindred's jungle progression by pushing highly contested monsters later in the Wolf's Marks tier, preventing enemies from stalling the Eternal Hunters out by holding Marks hostage. At 50 seconds of having no active jungle mark, Wolf marks a enemy jungler monster for 3 minutes. Possible jungle camps have been updated based on how many stacks they have. The Rift Scuttler it's always the Rift Scuttler with 0 stacks. The second tier is Rift Scuttle Gromp with 1, 2, 3, and then Red Buff Krug 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so this kind of buffs the idea that I was talking about, where it's hard for Kindred to get her marks. They're making it so that it's easier for her to get the, like, it always spawns on Scuttle, which means that you can kind of pretty much contest those regardless of your strength, because your teammates can collapse easily. You can find a way to get to the jungle mark. Additionally, that you can get easier marks earlier in the stage as well. I definitely think that they kind of addressed a little bit about Kindred's biggest problem, is that her kit's entirely based about how many marks she can have. I think this is definitely a good buff to her generally, and it doesn't buff her relative numbers, but it makes it easier for you to fulfill like what you want in the kit. and less games where you're getting like 2 marks as opposed to games where you're getting like 9. I think that's pretty good. LeBlanc. This champion is really problematic. So I think even now, she's just way too good. Part of the things I don't like about her is that her E latch range feels exceptionally long. Coming from someone who plays champions like Kled, where the other champions sometimes can just walk out of the leash range, it feels like her leash range is very gracious or generous. Sorry, with how much range it gives you. On top of that, she just does so much damage. I definitely won't miss this champion if she gets nerfed. So what did they decide to do? They nerfed the W damage, and Q damage deals more to minions. So they made it so it's easier to wave clear. Whoa, what? Holy shit, they gutted the W damage. Mimic Distortion is 180 damage at rank 3. His level 5 Distortion is 100 damage at 0.2 AP. Wow. That's really low. I don't think I've seen this level of a nerf for a champion on base damage values alone since old Jayce E, when it took off like 280 damage. This might mean that you start maxing Q first and just look to shove the wave a lot and try to tag the opposing player with your W and Q and just and then kill them through that way. You definitely lose a lot of your damage and your all-in potential, especially early. They gutted the early damage by 45 at 1. That's I don't know. It's going to be really hard for you to kill people without someone else. Also, the other thing to think about is that think of exactly how exactly does LeBlanc get a lot of kills in late game. Some of it comes from her like double distortion into the group of people and then getting out and queuing them, or just like double distortion into the backline and then QEing immediately to do damage. And now her double distortion is 180 damage, is 0.3 AP scaling. That's insanely low. This is a much bigger nerf than I thought they would do to her, and might actually just like this is straight up gonna push her out of S tier for mid lane. I think, in a way that's very surprising. Because it's like they want to drop an S tier champion straight down like 2 ranks. I want to see how it progresses because maybe LeBlanc just turns into Max and Q, and she's okay. But I'm really surprised they decided to nerf her too hard. Or this hard. Okay, let me move on a little bit. Lucian, Q and W are smoother to cast. So I think in general, the way that you should see ADs right now is that short range ADs are very, very hard to play. Just as they've always been hard. Not only do they open themselves up to getting exhausted much easier by the enemy team, it's also really easy for like mid laners and top laner bruisers to hit you if you're closer range. So if you're a short range champion, you have to have some excellent reason for you to be picked because like you're giving up a lot to be short range. You have to play the game so much better to play team fights if you're a short range champion. So what did they decide to do? They made it so that Lucian Q more accurately has a lower cast time, as well as you can do follow-up commands much easier, so it's smoother, okay? And Ardent Blades has a lower cast time. This doesn't necessarily increase his raw damage, but it makes it more fluid to play the champ, which I think is good, because the champion should all be about fluidity. If you've seen like late game Lucians, they like hit you a couple times to pass it, they'll use the ability, double hit you, use your E, double hit you, W hit you, then the E is back up. And you're just constantly weaving in and around the fight. I think that's ideally how Lucian does play out. At the moment, I don't think he's very good, but anything to make it so that where he's like a little bit better to play, I think it's fine, because he's not in a great spot right now. MF. So this champion is just a champ that's really benefits from lethality cleaver a lot right now. I think that, especially if you get hit with her Q in lane, you just lose all your health. So what did they do? Bounces can now crit and always crit when they hit when the first hit thing hits the second target. That's a lot worse. Except for in late game situations with IE, she's going to be doing a ton of damage, right? And it's I think Riot is maybe looking to encourage MF players to push themselves more toward a crit oriented build. The ulti right now does 20% more damage if it based off crit, up to 20. I think it's up to 20%. It can crit for 120% damage right now. And on top of that, the fact that her Q double up can crit is pretty. It means that late game she'll be really good going the crit value. Or that's the ideal. However, I just don't see it happening. So I think with the change to double up being as it is right now, which makes it so that a lot of times for MF you don't even have to kill the creep with Q bounce to be able to do additional damage on the back end. However, it's not the same anymore. Like it can crit, but you're not going to be running any crit early. So it's a really big nerf to harassing people behind if you get to bounce without killing the creep. I think this is, but I don't think this necessarily changes MF. Like the thing about MF is like I don't think people will be encouraged to run crit. I think someone's going to try it and be like, this sucks. And then they're just going to stop trying it. And what's going to happen is rather than maxing Q, they're literally just going to go and max E again. And so bot lane MF is going to go from like something that's going to be just as annoying to play against, except for they reverted back to their old play style. The champion itself is slightly weaker. That's at least what I see. Maybe people still max Q, but I think they're just going to max E again. Maybe they just do this. Yeah, they'll probably do the same build and then just toss an IE somewhere in the build and it'll be fine. So, I can definitely see MF just maxing E. I don't think MF will be in that bad of a state after this. It would just suck because her Q was really strong at being able to lane in certain situations where people couldn't position well, or you couldn't position well around it. Rengar. So this champion right now is dominant, like super dominant. I think right now the best jugglers in the game are Rengar, Graves, and then after that list it's like Olaf, Kha'Zix Elise, and one other one that's slipping my mind right now. And I think a little bit like Rengar nerfs are pretty reasonable at the moment. So what did they decide to do? They nerfed his base armor by about 4. And they made it so his gray health conversion it's because his clear speed makes him too healthy, and Ivern, sorry, and he makes it so he can't fully heal on W. I think these nerfs are well warranted. This champion is really, really good right now, super good, and even with these nerfs, he's not going to fall off that bad. All right, let's keep going. Ryze. So this is a problematic champion because aside from Cassio, nothing really else keeps Ryze down. People can play the Ori Ryze matchup, but it's not as bad as before, where Ori used to be the counter pick for Ryze. At best, Ryze Ori you could just play into it, Whereas Ryze like prefers to play the Ori. The only thing that really pressures Ryze super hard right now is a good Casio player and a good LeBlanc player. With LeBlanc seeing nerfs, Ryze is to me still a really problematic champion. I think this champ is ridiculous. So what did they do to nerf this champ? They made his base root damage down, and then his E now scales with ability level. I actually like this nerf. So this is like the biggest problem is that with the base nerf for it's that you're giving you're accused of skill shot, right? So that's good. And the only way you should only be able to reliably land the skill shot is if you double E the wave, spread the rune to the champion, and then Q the wave, or you W them and you Q them. But right now, because the snare is actually pretty long, you can get like you don't ever have to empower your W. If you just normally W them and you do this rotation exactly, W Q E Q, you do so much damage and you also pop your shield. So it's really difficult for them to do anything in terms of counterplay. And before all this situation, he can just shove the wave however much he wants, if he wants to. So I think a lot of the problem with this champion right now is his wave clear is really, really strong. His harass is really good, as well as the fact that he has a lot of mobility and a lot of defense. Like, he has a shield as well as the movement speed. And in nerf, it's one of those four regards is the best way to deal with Ryze. And so what did they decide to do? They nerfed his ability to smoothly harass, nerfing this down meaning that I think at best you're able to get 3 abilities off. W, E, Q. Additionally, they made it so his spell flux isn't spammable level 1. This is really frustrating but this might change a lot about the champion early, because right now, Ryze's laning phase is good, but he needs to find a way to get a first back. And so what happens right now is Ryze plays the wave even, and then at the first cannon wave, he hard shoves. He starts with Crystal, backs with I think 450 gold, and buys his tier. And then after that point, he's solid. But at this point, this nerfs his early wave clear by a lot. And not even early, because you want to be putting all your points into Q. And so this nerfs it all the way up to like level 13. So it means that a lot of his early game ends up getting nerfed, even in skirmish situations as well. I think it's certainly an interesting way to deal with his problematic kit right now. It might be an over nerf, but I'd like to see how this champion feels. I actually wouldn't mind if Ryze is kind of nerfed out of the pool. However, if he does get nerfed out of the pool, like if LeBlanc and Ryze out of the picture, like who benefits the most from these champions disappearing? I think that they were really good at keeping down. Like Ryze is really good at keeping down assassins, such as like Zeta Talent. It's really difficult to play those champions into them, as well as the fact that like those two champions, like Casio lanes so well into everything that she was chosen as a counterpick to Ryze, and I think this raises Ori priority up because she's one of the few champions that deals well with Casio, and if you blind pick Ori, like what are your bad matchups at this point? You don't really have terrible matchups. Like people will probably pick Jayce into you, and that's okay. It's not terrible for you. So I think that the other meta champions and potentially like maybe like the champions that are a little bit below like Victor are the ones that benefit the most from nerfs on the two best mid laners, or two of the best mid laners right now. I think that Ryze definitely deserves nerfs. I think he's still way too problematic, but maybe this is too much. I'm okay. I'd rather them do this and see how it works out than them trying to like softball nerfs. Because I think for the most part, they tried on Ryze so many. They nerfed his Q by 20%. They nerfed his shielding. They did so many small nerfs. I think that they really need to go hard at like stuff like this to be able to really force the nerfs to be impactful. All right, so initially, thank God they're nerfing this champion. So I think that at the moment, Varus is just too problematic of a champion. This champion, the wave clears way too easily. If you fall behind the lane, he just like gets shoved back. His poke is so long range, does so much damage, works really well with lethality, and it kind of makes it so that it's these set of like the entire point of the AD carry role is like you're a role that like tends to auto attack much and play around the lane. Varus is not a champion that auto attacks much, and I think that that's a far cry from what they had in mind when you're thinking about the best AD players, the highest mechanical skill players. I want to see Bang playing Varus. No, I don't want to see Bang playing Varus. Anyone can play Varus. And so I think the champion itself is probably the most overtuned in terms of ADs. If you look at competitive games, only Varus is getting banned a lot of times, and like Jhin and Asher getting left up a decent amount. I think that this champion just needs to get hit hard, or like a decent amount. So what happens right now? They made it so where it's scaled down its total AD damage, down 50% from max, okay? And then the cooldown went up by 4 seconds at the very end. It's now reduced by 4 seconds if it detonates blind stacks on the champion. So this champion just got nerfed by a lot. Because this means the only way you can get blind stacks, there's only 2 ways you get blind stacks. It's ulting them, and it's auto-attacking them. And so, yeah, this champion got hit pretty hard, but I definitely think he deserved it. This is a champion that was literally just getting abused so hard right now. A lot of this patch hit like very hard on the competitive champions, and so champions like this is essentially a huge nerf onto the competitive mid lane pool, with LeBlanc and Ryze getting nerfed this hard, as well as Rengar getting nerfed. He drops a little bit in priority, and Varus getting nerfed. So the 2 of the best mid laners, the best AD carry, and one of the best junglers got nerfed for competitive. I definitely think that this is what was necessary for the game. Maybe the nerfs are a little bit too hard, but I'm like sick and tired of seeing a lot of these champions in my games, and so I'm happy to see more diversity. I do think that a lot of these champions, like, it's okay to have there to be a best champion as long as he doesn't oppress the other picks too hard. But Varus is a champion that tends to like not let other people play the game. And similarly to Ryze, and LeBlanc is a champion where it's like, well, you're really limited in the amount of picks you have against these 2 champions. Jayce, so before, if you watch my earlier patch preview, I used to harp a lot about Jayce because I thought he got to your top laner, got to your mid laner, flexible pick, just super OP. After my last patch preview, actually a lot of people came up to talk to me, and they were just like, look, I don't think Jayce top is as OP as you think it is. I think he's only really good mid, and at top lane, he's just not good enough at the moment. Like, he can't really put enough damage in the tanks before 2 items, and by then, like, he's really not that effective. I think especially the nerfs to the champion make him not that good, and so I used to call for a lot of Jayce nerfs. I think he's in an okay spot right now. That's why, even though there's no Jayce nerfs in this kit, I'm okay with that, because he really did fall very, very hard from his throne on top lane. I think he's still a good mid lane pick, and a great mid lane pick, good top lane pick, but he's not like stupidly oppressive. Okay, so what did they decide to do? So they decided to also touch on Blade of Rune King as well as Edge of Night. So this is a champion. This is an item that doesn't get bought a lot. So I can just think about the champions who would buy this item off the top of my head. Zed, Kalista, AD Cannon. Not many people buy this. Aatrox. Like, not many people buy this item. It's a very, very niche item. So what did they decide to do with this? Blade Rune King filled a number of roles as a whole. Dueling Spike, Kite Enabler, Tank Buster. We introduced new items to fill one of these roles. So what is Blade going to be? Primary purpose for Blade is going to be compelling lifesteal items for champions who care about basic auto attacking a lot. This focus it reliably so what happened? The overall cost goes down by 100. The AD goes up by 15. The attack speed goes down by 15. The lifesteal goes up by 5%. The active damage is 100 magic damage. That's nothing. What the heck? It doesn't heal you anymore. And on-hit damage now has a minimum of 15. 100 magic damage? 100. This is a buff to Ezreal. Like, Ezreal already... I forgot about that champ. Ezreal is already the only meta champion that builds his item. It's very, very good on him. Because his Q could proc Bork at a very long range. And with Trinity, it's just phenomenal on him. This makes Bork so good for Ezreal. I don't know about for other champions, but for Ezreal, it's like, whoa, you really like everything. Because you don't mind the attack speed loss. You're not attacking that much, and you're giving the 50% attack speed in your initial passive kit. On top of that, he gets more lifesteal and like more AD, and that's really all he wants. I think Ezreal is also one of the champions that benefits a lot from Varus getting nerfed. So if you look at the AD priority right now, especially competitive play that kind of leaks over to rank play, you have the top tier, which is Varus, Jhin, Ashe. And right after him, the immediate follow-up from those two is probably going to be Ezreal there. And to some extent MF, right? Some people are playing it, not really. But Ezreal is the most flexible right after that. And so I think this is really nice for that champion. I don't know who else would really want to buy this champ. Buy this item. I don't use Bork a lot as is. I also think this is a really good item for I used a decent item for Zed because he doesn't care too much about the attack speed, but he actually doesn't care too much about the lifesteal component either. He cared a lot about the active damage. Because it allowed him to beat anyone 1v1. So this becomes less of a split push 1v1 item and more strictly of an item where it's like you on hit a lot. It's a strange item. I don't think people will be building this much unless you can do a lot of on hit damage. All right, whatever. Let's keep moving on. My thoughts on this are great for Ezreal. Not sure who else is going to use this that much. Secondly, Shield of the Knight. Okay, so what happens? They nerfed. Okay, let me talk a little bit about this. So Riot did something I did not think they would do and have not done in a long time. They fixed. They mid-patch updated, nerfed an oppressive item that was too good. So what they did in the middle of the last patch, a week after the patch came out, was that they nerfed the AD by 5 and they made the active cooldown back to its pre-buff state at 45 seconds. Which I think was great. I think it's super good of them for them to do that because usually they wait 2 weeks to see how an item works out, but it was really obvious that the item was super impressive. If they want to do more of this kind of stuff, I very much encourage things like that. So rather than seeing stuff, because they're able to then do smaller nerfs in this situation to be able to like get in positions to where you don't have to see nerfs like, hold up, you don't have to see nerfs like this, right? I don't even know, like this seems like they just tried to nerf LeBlanc and they couldn't get it, so she has to be destroyed, put in the ground. That's essentially what this tells me. But maybe if they were able to hotfix her like a little bit at a time, because she's just like such a hard champion to balance, maybe they wouldn't have to be put in a position to where they have to just like give her the axe and just kill her essentially. But let's talk about the current nerf. They nerfed Edge of the Night by 5 seconds. I think this is really good because a lot of the problem was that the duration was too long. I think 5 seconds is pretty low. I would have preferred 6 or up because you use it to synergize with stuff like Pantheon drop as well. And so like using it, getting 5 seconds in the ulti means you only have like 2 seconds to work with. But I guess that's fine because it's only really impressive in the combination of with other initiation stuff, and making the window smaller means that there's less ability. Like you have to be smarter with the item, and I think that it's good. I would prefer at least 6 seconds on it, but I'm not going to be able to argue with an item that's very, very strong. Let's move on. So, Bond of Stone was a garbage mastery, and I think that the idea of Bond of Stone was going to be the mastery that and stick with me here. It's the mastery that you use in the support role for melee support champions. That's it. Champions that can't shield, can't use wind speakers. Bond of Stone is supposed to be for melee supports, but it's such a negligible value early, and the fact that people were using Grasp over Bond of Stone just so that the melee supports would have more impact. And so I'm happy they're scrapping this. It just really felt like no, because everyone was using Grasp or even like the Courage of the Colossus. When that came out, everyone who was using this just switched to using that. So yeah, and one of the bigger things is it's not terrible, but the strength is very invisible. Like, you can barely tell what it does, and Keystone Masters are supposed to be like big things. I definitely agree with their statement in these first two lines right here. What does this do? You gain 5% maximum health. Wow, big thing. 5% health, that's awesome. Late game, that can amount to like easily 100 plus health. But it incentivizes you to use this quite a bit, way more than 100 actually. What's the late game scenario? You have 3,000, so actually yeah, it's like 150 health. I think it's 5%. It's nice, okay, as long as it's not the main thing. Your movement's impairing abilities affect enemy marked champions with an earthy rune that heals other allied champions who basically attack them for. Wait, what? So it's the healing scales on the health of the person who buys the Stoneborn Pact, or is it scale based on the health of the person who's proccing the Stoneborn Pact? I think it scales off your own stuff, which would make more sense. Which is, it gives them sustain. If you hit them, it is perfect for Braum Q. Like, I'm thinking you hit them with the Braum Q, and then they just get healed for free. That's actually not a lot early. But it's a decent amount. I think that it's an interesting concept, especially with the sustained options get less and less in bot lane. Nerf to Warlords, and outside of the 3 pots, this is definitely a way to make it. It rewards you for harassing the enemy player, which is something that definitely I think that should be encouraged. I like it. I'd have to see it more in action because I can't really visualize what it means. But it will be very interesting for stuff like Braum, Leona, anything that can essentially proc anyone who can CC, which is all melee champions can CC. Kench Q can CC at a very safe distance as well. My only worry is that this becomes so powerful that they won't take anything else. I think more than likely this will just straight up replace Courage of the Colossus for a lot of the bot lane champions because it gives you a lot more benefit except for on champions which are similar to Alistar, I guess, where you put yourself in 2 bad. Actually, maybe not. I guess it fights for this slot with it. I just want to see how it plays out. I actually can't figure out or can't think of how it'll apply. It might be good enough to where it just gets it replaces a lot of the current melee supports switching to Courage of the Colossus. And I don't know if that's bad or good. I just think that it does something. Anyways, let's keep going. Deathfire Touch bonus attack damage ratio nerfed. Death Fire Touch is doing far too much work. The bonus AD ratio gets nerfed to 0.45. So it was too strong for AD users, especially champions like Jhin, and so it got nerfed down. I can definitely see maybe this is too good, and champions like MF might even switch back to Thunderlords. But Varus, Jhin, and MF were the 3 ones that were using this the most. I think Jhin players should be happy they're getting nerfed like this, because Jhin has been a champion that's been really, really strong since almost its inception. Except for the first month or so of its release, it's been super strong. It's always been top 3 ADs since like almost its release. These are indirect Jhin nerfs, but this is way better than having something like this happen to their champion, where it's straight up that they get nerfed hard on their main damage ability. So I would say you're fortunate. Rather than saying that like it's unlucky for Jhin players, they're very fortunate their kits aren't being tagged. Warlord's Bloodlust is now an energized effect. Energized attack gain lifesteal and grant movement speed. They're literally making it 50% lifesteal level 18. What the Huh. It's for 1 auto attack. But still, like late game. Okay, let's say Jhin gets crits 1 auto. What are Jhin crits right now? Like honestly, what are Jhin crits? Like 1,000, right? Draven crits really hard too. Or yeah, Vayne tumble crits really hard as well. I like that. I agree with their entire idea of this, which is that early access to low risk healing is really bad. And when Warlords came out, I actually really didn't like the idea of this and Feast being so OP. They had to nerf I think they nerfed Feast once or twice immediately because there was just too much sustain in the game. Now this is more sustain that's built around very specific windows, which I prefer definitely to the current iteration. The only thing that's going to be problematic is how much it takes to charge the 1 auto, because early game it doesn't seem like it'll be a lot. But if it goes 1 to 50, like it might be a decent amount, like at level 6, and so I'm really interested to see how fast it charges. And that's really going to be whether or not it's going to be very, very strong. This could very well be extremely powerful, but it's hard for me to really know without seeing it. Oh, it's the same as Rapid Fire, Shiv, etc. That's not too bad. You get 1 proc a wave at the very least. 6 to 7 autos. 1 proc a wave. Huh. Okay. I'm interested. I don't know how effective it's going to be, especially because a lot of times keystones that don't have impact early game aren't very effective. Especially when it comes from a role where you need the damage to lane. But it's interesting. Or not even the damage, the effectiveness early. Alright. And also, this works really well with crit. Because it's just 1 auto. So if your auto crits, you get an insane amount of lifesteal. Now this is the big kicker. God bless. I'm so happy about this. So exhaust no longer reduces attack speed or resistances. I'm so happy. Like, exhaust is just there to damage reduce an assassin. Like, I understand the idea of exhaust. The problem is lowering attack speed doesn't really affect assassins. It's just super annoying, and that's actually a large reason why exhaust is used bot lane, because if you not only neuter the damage of the AD when you exhaust them, if they don't have attack speed, they can't do anything. Um, as well as the fact that it also used to shred armor and Mara, which doesn't make any sense to me. I'm just so happy they nerfed this summoner spell finally. This will encourage Ignite to be used a little bit more in bot lane, I think, especially if maybe Stoneboard Pact and Warlord's Ballast are better than expected. And just in general, I just think that you'll probably see more kill-oriented lanes coming up, because Exhaust no longer just completely neuters the main DPS in the lane. So I would say bot lane players who like the kill stuff, rejoice, because this is definitely super good. This will still be used. Don't get me wrong. If the other team has a Zed, you're still probably going to run Exhaust in the support. But at least there's a definitive decision rather than just running it every single game. Visual clarity, they cleaned up a lot of animation timings. Okay, which is all this stuff is good, and then nothing else is really here. Sick. All right, I'm gonna jump over to Galio. I don't think anything of the else really matters. They updated sizing, recall animations for a lot of older champs, tool tips, and visual clarity. Certainly, a lot of this stuff is definitely gonna help, but it's not very, very big changes. So I'm just gonna jump into the other stuff, because I don't really care about too many of the other things, and I don't really read over bug fixes, because I just feel like there's only gonna be one or two that's going to be really important. So moving over to Galio real quick. Galio is okay. So I think it's really funny. They changed Galio to be originally the idea of Galio. His title was the Guardian, right? But they decided to change this to not even be a guy. He feels like he's supposed to be a superhero. I'm here to save you guys, I think that's actually pretty cool, because it forces his theme more. And so some of it's maybe a little bit corny, but I don't mind that, because obviously I'm very much biased toward superhero kind of stuff. So what does this say? The first thing is its passive. His next auto deals bonus damage to the area, scaling with his bonus AD. Why would anything scale with his bonus AD? Is he becoming a bruiser? And magic resist bruiser? That would be interesting. Okay. Colossus Smash cooldown is reduced when Galio's spells hit a unique champion once per spell. Okay. So if he hits with his spells, if he hits multiple champions, he gets more and more Colossus Smashes. Okay. Which are also AoE abilities. Cool. Just very similar AoE on hit ability. Cool. Let's keep going. Winds of War. Fires 2 gusts of winds. So it's similar to his old E. Yeah, his old E got turned into his Q, because it was the gust of winds. What the heck? Where wind blasts converge, a vortex that deals additional damage is formed, including bonus damage based on target's max health. Okay. It ticks for about a second after they arrive. So it hits the sides. The most important thing is to get the enemy in the middle, because that's when you get the most damage, and it does percentage max damage. Okay, let's keep going. Does it slow? Doesn't seem like it slows. Okay, cool. No CC, just damage? Interesting. Shield of Durant. Okay. He avoids taking damage for a moderate period of time. He gains a shield that absorbs magic damage. Holding down the W key causes Galio to enter defensive stance, gaining damage reduction but moving significantly slower. This channel can't be interrupted even if Galio gets hit with a CC effect. Okay, so he can't even get CC'd out of this. When W is released, Galio taunts nearby champions. The taunt range and duration are extended based on how long he remains in defensive stance. You can definitely flash with this ability. it's really interesting. He automatically gains a magic shield. So I think he's very much themed toward I gotta be able to beat magic damage users. And I like that. Like, he's a magic damage tank. Justice Punch. God, even the name is superhero like. Hops back to Wine for an epic haymaker. After the brief delay, he charges forward, doing magic damage to enemies and knocking them up. Galio's charge stops colliding with champions or terrain. Justice Punch. Okay, so he's got a gap closer. I wonder what the interaction with his shield is Justice Punch art. More likely you can't use it together. You can't charge into a Justice Punch. And Winds of War doesn't actually CC. Ideally, you combine Winds of War with your shield to keep them taunted in an area, and they take constant magic damage, and you're like AoE the point as well. Okay, cool. Now this is the coolest part about his kit. Hero's Interest designates an ally's current position as his landing spot, granting them shield that demands damage reduction for a few seconds. Okay? He then lands high in the air, torpedoing to place his target ally was when Galio activated Heroes in Trance. When he enters, he does magic damage to all champions in the area, knocks them up. This knockup lasts longer for those in the center of the landing area. Okay. Dude, this is so sick. Like, I apologize if you thought that Galio's old ulti was cool. This is cool. Like, getting hit with this shit would be like, oh my god, I just crushed them, you know? I love the idea. Fits well with the theme. It's called Hero's Entrance, right? So I think that it just looks cool. I love it. You know, similar to the Warwick rework, Taric rework, Sound rework. This, like, it seems like Riot's getting a really good job of getting their reworks to work thematically, as well as just, like, it looks really cool. The range is sick too. Like, look at the range. It's tier 3 to past tier 1. So that's an easy, like, 2,000 range right there. The thing people are asking, like, why would you pick other tanks over this champion? I don't know what this champion is supposed to be. Like, I think he's just straight up turned into a melee magic damage bruiser. And right now, isn't that really good for him? Because when you have champions like Rumble, like, destroying the world, like, who's the hero you want to save you? This guy. That's at least the idea, right? Because he gets magic damage reduction based on his kit, and he punishes people who are short range. So it's like, just already I can think of, like, well, a lot of the top line bruisers suck against Rumble, but what about this champion? He's supposed to be built to be able to take advantage of, like, short range stuff. He dominates the early range, and he's got a magic damage shield. So I don't think that's gonna happen, by the way. I think Rumble's disgusting. But I think thematic, or, like, idea of it is that way. Like, he's not so much just a raw tank, he's also a tank that tends to do a lot of disruption. I don't know, watch the other videos. So going down, playing as Galio. Oh, okay. Stone Cold Warden who loves making earth-shattering interesting fights. He's tankier than most magic users. He smashes skulls in the front. Okay, I'm gonna stop reading that. He wants to hit you, and he also wants to make you hit him back. Yeah. Galio can blow up minion waves in a whirlwind of area effect abilities. He has more time to apply near global pressure with his ultimate Hero's Interest. Wise Galio players will keep an eye on their teammates' health bars and look for chances to save them. Winds of War lets Colossus blow down enemies from a distance, but the rest of this kit rewards a more intimate physical approach to combat. So as opposed to the other one, rather than being a poke champion that he was before, this is a champion that gets in your face and, like, beats you up, which I think it's cool. I like that. He can hold peeps down with shields and durants. We put Galio's old on his WXD. Who wrote this? This last line legit. Alright, I'm gonna skip that. I'm just gonna pretend I didn't read that. When Galio's buddies closing, God, they even highlighted it. Jeez. Great at starting epic battles, not so great at escaping them. Okay, that's fine. He gets in the fight, he's there till the very end. In-game clips. Starts off, gap closes, okay. Flash, punch, which is something that you would expect. He doesn't have that much CC. Oh! Wait, I thought he was like hero entrance on the jar. Oh! Wow, that taunt range is actually really long. What? Oh, that's not that long. It just like tail ended 3 people. 4 people. Wow. That's like a game winning taunt right there. Really nice. What's the other thing? Oh, that's the one I just saw. Oh, that's sick. So you combine it with an initiator. He targeted Quinn when she went in with me, right? I like it. It's not just a defensive tool. You can use it like Shen ulti as a proactive playmaking tool. I think that's great. And it looks like his E range is relatively long too. Look at that. Goes from here to here. That's pretty good. That's not like a normal gap closer. That's like an easy like 700 range gap closer. Cool. And the extras are that. Oh, they got all the skins. Dude, they did work on this one, man. Alright, let's see this again. Champ looks sick. Alright, cool. They definitely like they redrew all the ones for his skins. That's cool. That's really cool. Alright, whatever. I know I'm gonna play the shit out of this champ when he comes out. Hopefully it won't get banned all of day one. Alright, I'm gonna go play some ads. I'm gonna go back to playing some League. I'll see you guys in a little bit.